What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte. Today, we are taking a look at the Chicago Blackhawks going into the 2025-2026 NHL season. The Chicago Blackhawks, listen, the story writes itself for Connor Bedard. This is a potential revenge season for the Blackhawks. Or maybe not. Maybe not quite yet. We're going to discuss that here today. So the Chicago Blackhawks are in the midst of a rebuild. Unless you were just kind of, if you're new to things, you were living under a rock the last couple years, things have been rough for the Blackhawks. There is talk that they were trying to go out and get a big name winger to play with guys like Connor Bedard and some of their other young players, and nothing really came of it. They were not able to add that big player to play alongside their franchise center in Connor Bedard. So then becomes the debate, well, then what does this team look like going into this season? What are the expectations of the Chicago Blackhawks? And I can put it in two words for you, very distinct and bluntly: growing pains. Growing pains is going to be the theme of the 100th anniversary of the Chicago Blackhawks in 2025 into 2026. Listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is going to be another rough year for the Blackhawks. There's a young team with some middling veterans that signed contracts that know that they're probably not going to be in Chicago toward the end of their contracts. And I think for the Blackhawks, this is a really important time in the sense that, yes, you have Connor Bedard, but now you're starting to see some of the younger players that they've been drafting over the last couple years, not only up front, but on the back end making this team. And there are lofty expectations for some of these guys. So we're going to discuss that here today. So let's look up front. Let's start up front like we always do with these videos. So the first line, as of now on Daily Faceoff, they have Andre Burakovsky playing alongside Ryan Donato, centered by Connor Bedard. I think there's a lot of intermingling with these top two lines in particular. I think you could very much see Donato go from the first line to the third line, or Burakovsky jump to the third line to play alongside Mikheyev or Foligno. Things can move around a lot on this team with the way it's kind of laid out, because I don't think there is a dominant, like, this player will play with this guy. I think they're going to try and mix and match with a lot of new guys on the team and kind of see what works. Now, I will say one thing that I think isn't very interchangeable, and I'd like to actually see what this line looks like if they do this. I really like their second line if they keep it: Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen, centered by Frank Nazar. Now, Frank Nazar is a player that I have a special attachment to, because if you guys don't remember, a couple years ago the Islanders made a trade. They traded their first round pick. That was that draft pick, which was Frank Nazar. So for me as an Islanders fan, I've definitely been keeping an eye on Frank Nazar to kind of see what he becomes with the Blackhawks. And I think so far, I think the results are, they're still pretty high for Nazar, that he will be a top six center, like he's listed here on the lineup. And I think this is a guy that, for the Blackhawks, this is the guy that can really help stabilize that center core, especially as there's so many other pieces. You've got Bedard, you've got Nazar, and with everything else kind of in a whirlwind with this team, I think it's very important that they have stability down the middle. If you know that Nazar and Bedard are good, that's huge for them. And those are the two guys in particular that I'll really be watching with the Chicago Blackhawks. I do like Andre Burakovsky in the sense that he's a good player to add to this team, in the sense he can score goals. He has scored a lot of goals in his NHL career, maybe like underratedly, honestly. But to play on the top line, I wonder how that's going to work, because the expectations of him on some of the other teams he's played on, he's been in the middle six where he's played his best. So playing with Bedard and Donato on the top line, how is that going to kind of transpire? Now, the bottom six is kind of interesting. We see some new faces over the last couple years, guys like Landon Slaggert, who definitely comes to mind, not only because his name, but we all know his situation. He's a big frame. Oliver Moore, who's kind of the opposite, more of a smaller player that's more of a sniper, goal scorer. So we'll see how that kind of works out. Jason Dickinson, I think, is a good center. I think that's a good pickup in that sense. And then the blue line. I really want to talk about this blue line, because this blue line is insane in the sense that it is so different than anything we've seen from the Blackhawks over the last couple of years. So you've got Alex Vlasic and Sam Rinzel as your top defensive pairing. Now, if I mispronounce that, let me know down below. But Sam Reinzel sounds better. I'll go with that. So Reinzel and Vlasic as your top pair. I really like Alex Vlasic. He's gone through a lot. He's already in his young career with the Blackhawks, but he's learning so much, and I think he is going to be a really good piece for this Blackhawks team. I'm Very excited to see what happens there. And it only gets better. Hold on. The next three guys I'm going to announce, hold on. Hold your horses. We got Wyatt Kaiser and Artem Levshinov. Yes, that's right. Artem Levshinov, the Michigan State grad. This is a big deal for the Blackhawks. Artem Levshinov will be playing with the Blackhawks hopefully this season, and I think this is a guy that could be a cornerstone to this back end moving forward. This is the type of guy, he's a great skater. Again, another big body defenseman, kind of along the lines of like a Matt Schaefer, kind of like what we saw from the Islanders in this year's draft. There is lofty expectations for him. Hey, listen, everything's good in college and in junior and peewee and things like that, but when you get to the show, you never know what you're going to see. But I'm pretty confident Levshinov is going to be a dog back there for the Blackhawks, and they're going to have him for many years to come. And I think of other guys in Chicago over the last, during their dynasty, right? Duncan Keith definitely comes to mind when I think of Artem Levshinov. All right, and then the third pairing. Hold on, it gets even better. Now, Connor Murphy, he's been there for a while. He's the veteran on this back end, but across from him is Ethan Del Maestro. And Ethan Del Maestro is another guy that was a highly coveted defensive prospect for the Blackhawks the last couple years. But as you guys know, defensemen take a while to develop. So it's taken him a little while to get going, getting into the NHL. But I think that patience is going to be a virtue for the Blackhawks. I think this is another one, alongside some of those other names I already mentioned, like Levshinov and Vlasic and Kaiser. Ethan Del Maestro is right in that mix for some of the best defensive prospects over the last couple of years. Maybe the hype is dimmed down a little bit with him, but I think another year in the NHL, he got some time last year. I think that's only going to be a good thing for him. And kind of moving into the kind of going into the season, into training camp, this is going to be a season for the Blackhawks where it's going to be a lot of learning and dealing with adversity, because this is a team that does not have that superstar veteran that can kind of settle everybody down. They have some decent vets here, but it's probably not to the level that I would be okay with if I was general manager. If I would try to find any way to bring in some more veteran leadership to this team. You don't want to see this ending up like an Edmonton Oilers oil change situation, right? We remember that documentary, a ton of first overall picks on every line, defense, forwards, and it didn't materialize. Why? There wasn't enough veteran leadership. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully the Blackhawks prove me wrong, but we're going to see a different side of this team. Should be interesting. In between the pipes, pretty young as well. You got Arvid Soderblom and Spencer Knight. Again, I think Spencer Knight's expectations have kind of been up and down depending on the day, but I think his stock could really rise with the Blackhawks, giving him more of an opportunity to play. Hopefully he stays healthy. That could be really good. And Arvid Soderblom is also really good. So I think that's another good addition. They also have Laurent Brossoit. I don't expect him to suit up anytime soon for the Blackhawks. And to be honest, I'm kind of okay with that two-goalie system for a team that doesn't expect to make the playoffs, is in a rebuild. That's good goaltending. It's not good goaltending in the sense that I expect them to be good. It's more so for what I expect for this team. It's going to do what they need it to do, if that makes any sense. They're continuing to tank. But also giving big minutes to some of the younger guys, which I think we're going to really see the maturity continue for Connor Bedard and things like that. Like, everyone's complaining about last year, how he was frustrated all the time and visibly frustrated. He was losing. Listen, guys, these guys are competitive guys. They are competitive at the peak of their game. And yeah, you know what? Throughout most of Connor Bedard's career, he could cook every team he wanted and skate up and down the ice, and he was winning everything. He was winning games, finding ways to win because he was that good. And when the level evens out when you get to the NHL, he's realizing that, and he's maturing. And the same thing happened with Crosby, and the same thing happened with Ovechkin. And guess what? The same thing happened with Connor McDavid too in the beginning of his career. That's how it goes. They're going to get roughed up. They're kind of going through their boot camp. This is the boot camp for Connor Bedard. These first couple years in the NHL really prove that he's about it, prove that he is a legit, competent NHL player, and he's going to be a superstar. You got to give it enough time. And to be honest, they are going to need a more of a supporting cast for him. And once that happens, I think this team is going to be set. So let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you.